Okay, today I'm making whole wheat bread. It's not 100%. It's got a couple cups of white in it, just because this is for my kids and I want it to be a little bit softer and better for sandwich making. But I have made this 100% and it tastes just as good. So however you like it. I turned my oven on. Since it's cold here, I turned it on to broil so it can get warm, and I'll just turn it off in a few minutes so that I can let my bread rise in there, and it'll rise quicker than leaving it on my counter. I don't think it'll rise because it's pretty cold here. So I'm going to start off with 6 cups of water. So I'm doing my water from the tap, and I just get it as hot as I possibly can. I don't measure, or I don't gauge the temperature of my water. I just make sure it's nice and hot. So first thing, 6 cups of water. And I'm going to do 3 cups of yeast, or I'm sorry, 3 tablespoons of my yeast. Next, I'm going to do 2/3 cup oil. And I use vegetable oil. You could use olive oil if you want. And I do my oil first before my honey so that my honey slides out nicely from my measuring cup. Next, I'm going to do 2/3 cup honey. So 2/3 cup honey. All right. See, slides right out.
In case you're wondering, it tastes wonderful. Right?
Right. Oh my goodness. Okay, so we go from, I lost my train of thought. My husband needs to leave. Okay, so you'll see here in my bowl, if you can see, it's kind of getting, kind of frothy. The yeast is starting to grow. So we did the oil, the honey. I'm going to do the dough enhancer because it's wheat. And the gluten, if I understand right, won't develop unless you use the dough enhancer to help the gluten develop. So dough enhancer, 3 tablespoons dough enhancer. 3 tablespoons of that. And I'm going to do my salt, 2 tablespoons salt, which never do over your bowl, because if you put too much in, and it spills, your bread's not going to taste very good. It's going to be salty. And now I've got my freshly ground wheat right here. Okay. 12 cups of wheat. So I was a little short on the wheat, so I'll just do a little extra white this time. Let's see. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to start mixing a little bit, and I'm going to start adding my white flour in. Okay. So I need about 3.5 cups of white. And that's give or take usually. I just kind of wait and see if when the bread starts to pull away from the bowl, you have enough flour in there. Okay, so it's pulling around the base of the bowl. The bread is pulling away from the bowl, so I know I have enough flour. So I'm going to let this knead in this bowl for about 6 minutes. And while I do that, I'm going to get my bread pans, and I'm going to grease them up. Just take Crisco right out of the tub, and I rub it around all 4 sides of my pan, around the brim, and around the base of it, and I just use my hand. And I've got a scale here because I like to weigh my loaves so they are all consistent. And I take Crisco and I rub it in my hands so that the bread dough does not stick to them. So, let's go off the top. And you can check your bread dough if you'd like. to see if the gluten's developed, and you can pull it across, pull it and it, it's kind of gummy. It pulls nicely. So that's the sign that your gluten developed properly, or so I've been told. You'll get 4 loaves out of this. You'll have extra. If you like a nice sandwich-sized loaf, you'll end up with some extra. And I usually make cinnamon rolls, pizza dough, or you can make, last time I made like little hoagie loaves so I can make little sandwiches for my kids. So I do it about 1 3/4 pounds is what each loaf is. Okay, so with my hands covered in the Crisco so that the dough won't stick. Hold on here. I'm going to take and I'm going to roll out each loaf. And then I do it this way because this is the way my mom taught me. So I kind of massage it between, I kind of pull it with the palms of my hands and I tuck it. Tuck it under. It's nice. And then hit out the bubbles so that you don't get any bubbles in your dough. Keep it nice and tight. And then I take my loaf after I've done that, and I make sure it's nice. And it's about a little longer than the palm of my hand. I take and I lay it in the pan. And then, if you can see, I take my hands and I kind of push down the outside corners and help it to fill the pan nicely. Give it a nice little form. So that is what it should look like, if you can see. And I'm going to do all 4 loaves. Okay. Now my oven's nice and warm. I turned it off a while ago, so it's not hot, it's just warm. So I'm going to put my bread in there. Let it start to rise. Okay, the bread is done rising. I let it rise in the oven for probably 20 to 25 minutes. So it's ready to go into the oven, which I preheated to 400. And once I put my bread into the oven, I'm going to drop it down to 325. So here is what the loaf looks like after it has risen. So about double in size. So now I'm going to turn on my timer. I'm going to do it for 12 minutes. I'm doing that because my oven has some funny spots how it heats, and so the center back gets cooks a lot faster, so I have to rotate my loaves about halfway through. So if you don't have to do that with your oven, just set it for 20 minutes and you can kind of start monitoring it after that. Okay, so my timer went off after 12 minutes. I rotated the loaves, and I'm going to stick, I just use my meat thermometer. I'm going to stick it in my bread. I just stick it right in the side of the loaf, right down towards the center. And you want it to get to about 180, at least 180. If it gets to 190, that's fine. I'm going to check it and see where it's at. And it is actually up to 180. So I'm going to pull my loaf of bread out, and I don't remove them from the pan for about 5 minutes. I let them cool off a little bit. So I will get to that step in a second. The pan's still kind of warm. If you let it sit in there too long, you can start to sweat. Okay. So that is nice. It comes right out. I use a silicone brush right here. And I brush the top with some butter. Just got some nice plastic bags that I stick them in, and once they're completely cooled, I stick them in the plastic bag and stick them in the freezer. Hopefully that helps, and good luck with the bread making.